Are the polls being rigged intentionally?
Mr. Reagan.
A poll came out yesterday from Rasmussen showing Donald Trump ahead nationwide. Now, this is a poll of likely voters, and that's far more important than registered voters or Americans generally. But this is the only national poll that shows Trump ahead, and that's very odd. Many people have noticed that there are thousands of people at Trump rallies and like 6 at Joe Biden's rallies. Sometimes it's just reporters, not even voters at all. It's bizarre. The contrast is obvious. Biden, zero enthusiasm. Trump, massive enthusiasm. Everywhere you go, you see Trump signs on lawns, Trump flags on trucks, Trump bumper stickers, Trump t-shirts, and of course, Make America Great Again hats. And yet, except for the Rasmussen poll, the polls all seem to indicate that Biden is way ahead. This is particularly confusing because they were all wrong in 2016. So you'd think that pollsters would step back and say, well, hold on a tick. We should probably reassess our methodology. So how can this be? How can the polls be so wrong again? Is this all just incompetence, or could it actually be intentional? And if it is intentional, why? All that in one moment. First, I have to sell you something. So I actually used to do keto, which is actually a really effective diet if you can do it right. But my problem was I literally ate so much fatty meat that I didn't lose any weight. No joke. I ate steaks like every day. It was fantastic, but I didn't lose any weight. Most people struggle with keto though because they have to give up carbs, not because they eat too much fatty meat. And just one bite of carbs can ruin your results because of how ketosis works. But you can actually mitigate this problem with this stuff right here, Keto Elevate. You've probably seen me advertise it on the channel before. Now, a buddy of mine actually turned me on to MCT powder a while back, and even though I'm on more of a paleo diet, I still use Keto Elevate. Keto Elevate will increase your energy, improve your appetite control, and provide you with a noticeable boost in mental clarity. I just add a scoop of it to my morning coffee along with BioTrust Collagen, another excellent product from these same guys. With Keto Elevate, unlike the typical keto diet, I can still support elevated ketone levels and many of their benefits despite having a few carbs. And I mean, I don't go crazy. I still keep my carb count under control. You got to be responsible with your diet, folks. But this stuff definitely helps. And with every order, BioTrust donates a nutritious meal to a hungry child through nokidhungry.org. So that is very cool. It's like you're supporting the channel, you're giving to charity, and you're improving your health all at the same time. It's fantastic. Get your own bag of Keto Elevate for 51% off and free shipping by going to ketowithreagan.com or by clicking the link in the description below. So why do we see such a disparity between the polls and enthusiasm? Why do we see so much enthusiasm across the country for Trump and zero for Joe Biden, and yet the polls say Biden is so far ahead? Well, you might think maybe people tell the pollsters who they want to vote for, but they don't run around enthusiastically screaming that they are for Joe Biden. Maybe Democrats are embarrassed to admit that they're Democrats. But that doesn't make any sense. No businesses fire you for being a Democrat. Republicans don't block friends they've had for 30 years just because they discover that their friend is a Democrat. These are things that leftists do, not conservatives. Trump supporters are the ones who are afraid to speak out about politics. We're the ones who risk our jobs or our friends by admitting that we support Donald Trump. I've certainly lost friends when they've discovered that I am politically conservative. This has happened to me several times. And I personally know many secret Trump supporters. These are conservatives that would never dare admit to their friends or their coworkers that they are voting for Trump. But I haven't met a single secret Biden supporter. And you might say, well, that's because I'm not a Democrat. They wouldn't tell me that. But I haven't even heard about this happening at all from anyone. Democrats don't claim that there are secret Democrats not admitting that they're Democrats. This is just not a phenomenon. My guess is that for every openly conservative voter in Los Angeles, there are 100 secret Trump supporters. That's my guess based on what I've seen. Now, there was a hiccup in the Trump trajectory, and that was the first debate. A lot of Democrats who were planning on voting for Trump hesitated a little bit after that debate. Many of them wavered a little, and they thought, can I really vote for this crazy man? But then, like a phoenix born from the ashes, Trump turned in a magnificent performance in the final debate, a performance that many have called his finest debate performance ever. And after that debate, the term, this is real, the term, how do I change my vote, rated higher than any other time in history, on Google. Now that's good news and bad news. It's a great indication of just how great Trump did in that last debate, just how profoundly he redeemed himself. But it also indicates that a lot of people voted against him already. So it's a little bit positive, a little bit negative with that. But you know what? I honestly don't think that this is going to be enough to sway the election. 56% of Americans say that they're better off than they were 4 years ago. And that is with coronavirus. That's not like before coronavirus were you better off. That's like now, even with coronavirus, people feel this way. Now, they've taken these polls since 1984, and 56% of people saying that they're better off now than they were 4 years ago. This is the highest on record. It's the highest ever. And you know what? I think some of the 44% who don't believe their lives are better, I think some of them are lying. I mean, people know what this poll means, and if they don't like Trump, they'll say no, even if it's not true. Trump has helped to massively improve the lives of Americans. That's a very hard thing to just ignore. Switching to a guy who's clearly senile is a huge risk. And on social media, there is more Trump enthusiasm. Social media, which is a bastion of the left. Twitter users, according to Pew, are 60% Democrat and 35% Republican. The internet is just crawling with lefties. And yet, according to a professional data analyst by the name of Bella Stantic, based on rigorous data analysis of millions of social media posts, Donald Trump will win in November.
Before we get to what's going on, how do you come to the conclusions that you come to?
I basically analyze publicly available social media data and make my predictions.
So let's not muck around. What is happening in America right now? Who is winning?
It's a very interesting situation. Sometimes, I think on 18th of September, I collected 1 day of tweets, about over 4 million tweets with 20 million likes. And I did analysis, and based on that analysis, I concluded that Trump is ahead and he will win with 270 to 280 seats. I can quickly go through the breakdown. So basically, Trump has 161 seats, which are for sure, which are very firm, 19 which is sure, which brings him to 180. Then he, according to my analysis, which was on 20th of September, he was just ahead in Florida, Iowa, North Carolina, and Ohio, which gives him 68 seats. He was likely to win Georgia, which took him to 264, and Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Minnesota were coin toss. So basically, on probability, he's likely he will win one of these three seats, and that will take him to 270, 280. But I did a couple of days ago collected tweets from Florida, and I saw that he's more ahead than he was in September. That means that he's probably even stronger than he was in September.
So there you have it. Trump will win in spite of the polls. And look, if you doubt that the polls really are rigged, you might be surprised to know that polling companies actually admit that their polls are rigged to a degree. The way polls are conducted, greater weight is always given to Democrat voters. That is, Democrat voters are either counted as a little bit more than one vote, or else more Democrat voters are polled. And they do this because they believe there are simply more Democrats in the country. But there have been more Democrats in the country for a long time. And if that were such a significant factor, then Democrats would win every presidential election. But they don't. So why are the pollsters weighing Democrat votes more just because there are more of them? I mean, this is a silly way of trying to create an accurate prediction of the vote. If you have 10 Republicans and 20 Democrats and only 4 of the Democrats vote, but all 10 Republicans go vote, well, then the Republicans win. Polling 2 Democrats and 1 Republican will give you a reflection of the political demographics of the country, not an accurate prediction of the upcoming vote. But what this kind of weighting does do is it creates the illusion that Democrats are going to win, and this can be very valuable to Democrats. Why? According to a study from Stanford's Graduate School of Business, when voters are told that their peers are voting a different way than they are, 6% of the time, they will change their vote. 6%. That means that polls might be influencing 6% of Trump voters toward voting for Biden. That is insane. That's way more than the typical margin of victory. This means that polls themselves can actually influence an election. And so in the minds of Democrats, it's critical that the polls always show the Democrat candidate winning. And this is why I think that most polls never show Trump ahead. According to the same study, an expert recommendation has an even more significant impact. And this is why CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, and every other mainstream media outlet has shifted from being a news organization to being a 100% anti-Trump propaganda outlet 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're experts, and we're telling you how to vote. You should listen to us. Now, apparently, the expert opinions can actually influence choices by 11%. So between the peer pressure of the majority of society supporting Biden, according to the polls, and the so-called experts over at CNN telling everybody to vote for Biden, Trump is fighting an uphill battle. So will this all-out assault work? Not a chance. There is just too much enthusiasm on the Trump side. Last Saturday, I went to our weekly Trump rally in Beverly Hills. It's usually pretty good, a few hundred people, but last Saturday, it was insane. Look at this, look at this. The music, the people, everybody's having a grand old time. As we walk down the streets, you can see the employees of like Gucci and Prada just looking out their windows like, oh my gosh, what's going on? They were kind of terrified, but you'll be surprised to hear there was no looting and there was no burning of buildings. No, Trump supporters are not, in fact, Antifa. Now, during this rally, I not only saw your typical middle-class, clean-cut Republican types, I also saw, black people, Mexicans, gays, fat people, skinny people, ugly, pretty. I saw people who looked like billionaires, and I saw people who looked homeless. I mean, if I were to characterize everyone who came out to support Trump by their demographic groups or their physical characteristics, this video would be 10 hours long. There was just about every type of person imaginable over there at the rally. And one very interesting thing, I actually ran into a few old friends. These were actresses, beautiful girls who I'd worked with in the past on TV shows or commercials. And I was thinking, why are you out here? You could end your career just by being here. But they were out there proudly supporting Donald Trump. It was great. And if those women have the courage to come out, things are really changing. You see, we did not have this in 2016. In 2016, there were no crowds of people in Beverly Hills rallying for Trump back then. This is a 2020 phenomenon. And if people are this enthusiastic here in Los Angeles, man, it must be crazy throughout the more politically balanced parts of the country. All right, well, that's it for me. And remember, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant. It's just they know so much that is not so. Good night.
The goal for all of us should be that one day things will be done neither because of nor in spite of any of the differences between us, ethnic differences or racial differences, whatever they may be, that we will have total equal opportunity for all people. And I would do everything I could in my power to bring that about.